This podcast is dedicated to my dad. Happy Father's Day. Here's your pal with Ernie Johnson.
Welcome to Terrific Talk. My name is Tom Anderson. Tom Anderson.
Play to win the game. Gone. Tom
Anderson.
Great cash, homie. Great cash, homie.
I feel ready to go another 9 innings.
Touchdown.
I feel ready to go another 9 innings.
Touchdown.
Today, I consider myself the luckiest man on the face of the earth.
Down goes free.
Terrific Talk Podcast. Welcome back, Terrific Talk Podcast.
Here comes the hose.
I'm your host, Tom Anderson.
First, behind the bag. It gets through Buckner. Here comes Knight, and the Mets win it.
Welcome to Terrific Talk. I'm Tom Anderson. We've got a very special podcast for you today. I am beyond excited to talk with my next guest. He's done it all as a sportscaster, from calling Braves games to covering the Olympics and Goodwill games to play-by-play coverage of PGA Tour events to any sport you can even think of, he's covered it. And of course, he's the host of the greatest sports show on television, in my opinion, and that's Inside the NBA on TNT. Now, it's funny, a lot of people have been asking me this week, how the heck did you get Ernie Johnson? And honestly, I just reached out to him on Twitter, asking if he could help a young up-and-comer who wants to work in broadcasting. He easily could have ignored me or said get out of here, but he didn't do that. I think that says a lot about the kind of guy Ernie Johnson is. So without further ado, Elevator Ernie, EJ, welcome to Terrific Talk.
Hey, come on, I was trying to blow you off on this thing, and you were so persistent that that's the way it happened. No, hey, Tom, it's my pleasure, and I appreciate you asking, and I've been looking forward to it. So shoot anything you want at me, and I'll see if I can make a few things up here today.
Awesome. Now, I think we can start. Your father was a major league pitcher and, a longtime famous broadcaster for the Atlanta Braves. The broadcast booth at Turner Field bears his name. This must be a very special time of year for you with Father's Day. Fred, you were very close with him. What kind of influence did your dad have on your career?
I think that I just learned a lot from watching him as I grew up, Tom. He wasn't one of these dads who would say, this is what I'm doing for a living, this is what you should dedicate your life to, or anything like that. He never really pushed me one way or the other. He never even pushed me that much to play baseball, which is what I really wanted to do. That was my dream, was to be a pro ball player like he was. And that took me as far as the University of Georgia, and I tell folks I walked on as a freshman and then was told to walk off as a sophomore. and so that's where my baseball dream ended, because I couldn't hit the curveball. And so really growing up and watching him work in the doing Braves games for so many years in Atlanta, I just kind of grew up around the batting cage and grew up watching him interact with fans, and it was just one of those things. Skip Carey actually was the one who kind of urged me to try this. Skip was like, hey, you got a good voice, you ought to try this, and I was like, well, maybe, Then when I got cut, it was like, okay, I'll give it a shot, and started working at a campus radio station in Athens, WUOG, when I was in school there, and then another FM station after that, and then Macon and Spartanburg and Atlanta, and it kind of all transpired that way. But my dad's best advice to me was always just 2 words. He said, be yourself. Because he would watch me when I anchored the news, or he would listen to me when I was on the radio, and he would say, he'd give useful tips. Hey, you're talking a little bit too fast. Hey, you need to be a little more expressive. Hey, you need to shave. I saw you anchoring the 6 o'clock news in Macon. It looked like you had to shave. And so it was all really that kind of thing. It wasn't anything more really than I think the key was be yourself. Don't try to imitate somebody else's style, because as soon as you do that, you're acting when you go on. They said if you're just yourself, that's all you can do is show up and be who you are.
Now, for 3 or 4 years, you got to actually call Atlanta Braves games with your dad. How special was that for you?
It was that was the highlight. No matter what else happens in my career or happened before that, and there have been some really cool things to be part of, but that was the best. And it goes far beyond just sitting down and doing 9 innings with him. It's so cool to have that kind of relationship with your dad that you want to do that.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of guys out there don't have that relationship with their dad, or haven't talked to him for a long time, or dads are not part of their and for me, it was huge just to sit shoulder to shoulder with him and spend those few hours laughing, talking about baseball, talking about life, going down memory lane. It was an awesome time, and so I feel real blessed to have the kind of relationship I had with my dad, to be able to say, I want to work with him, because I know a lot of guys out there who probably said, well, the last thing I want to do is work with my dad, and that for me was the highlight.
Now, I got to ask this. Field of Dreams must be a very special movie to you. Is that your favorite movie?
It's one of them. It's a Wonderful Life is very cool.
Yeah.
I always like that, and I'm a big Gladiator guy, and Braveheart and everything else, but Field of Dreams is too. Part of me wishes that the guy had a better arm who was playing catch with Kevin Costner, because I don't think he can throw it from here to there in glass. So it would have been a lot more convincing if the guy really had a gun. But I do love the message of that movie. I really do, and so it's only after years and years of seeing it so many times that I've gotten that jaded to the point where I say, come on, man, throw like you can throw. Come on. But yes, I do love that. I do love that movie aside from his inability to throw. Costner's got a good arm, and it's natural, but the guy playing his dad, couldn't cut it.
I like that. What's your favorite sports book?
You know what? I don't know if you ever read A Season of Life, which is a really good book, and it talks about Joe Ehrman, who used to be the Baltimore Colts All-Pro and was an All-American at Syracuse, and became a high school football coach up in Maryland, and it's an excellent read, just about how he has taken on himself the mission of molding young men through football. Great book, A Season of Life.
I'll have to check that out. Now, so for the NBA on TNT, you've got the doubleheader and Inside the NBA. Can you kind of take us through a typical week, just say during the regular season, of how you prepare for that show?
Yeah, I think number one, it's not a game day preparation kind of a deal. It's every day, and this is basically what's worked for me, Tom. I've been doing the show since the 90-91 season, and so I kind of had to, develop a rhythm and a style for preparing that gets me ready for every show. I mean, and going back then, it was typewriters on index cards. How I would get all my information and have things at my fingertips. And then the computer came along. I mean, that tells you how long I've been there. Computers weren't even used that much when I started at Turner. So it gets to a point where there are certain things I do every day. I kind of keep a running log of the league, every game that's played, who did something significant in those games, injuries, stories that happened, and I make notations, and I've basically got a log throughout the NBA season, and then I keep my own kind of files on different teams. I got a file on each team, and I update that on a daily basis. And so by the time a show night comes around, it's not like you're cramming to see what's this team done since last Thursday, last time we were on.
Right.
I've got that going on all the time, and it helps because you're doing radio shows in between the TV shows and that kind of thing, and so you really just have to have that kind of a pulse of the NBA on a daily basis. So a lot of that work is done late at night when everybody's in bed, and I'm watching a West Coast game on TV, and I'm just working on stuff, and so. By the time game day comes, then you're kind of centering on reading the articles about the teams that are involved in your doubleheader that night, and updating stats and that kind of thing. And then, really, the preparation is the real work. The show is the easy part. The show is sitting around with those guys and talking hoop. And while we do have a format for that show, it's an unscripted show. The producer Tim Kiley and I know what we want to know, some of the directions we want to go. But Kenny and Charles and Shaq are not part of the production meeting. They have no idea really what direction we're going to go, and
Yeah.
It keeps their reactions spontaneous and gut level and genuine. It's not like we're sitting down there and rehearsing each segment, for a couple of times, so that when we go on the air, we can act like it's like we're reacting for the first time. I mean, when you see these guys laughing about something or coming off the cuff with something that seems like, wow, where did that come from? That's the way it works.
Yeah, it's the best.
We want it to be spontaneous. We want it to be like a living room where nobody's asking for permission to talk and nobody's rehearsing what they're going to say, 10 minutes from then.
So while these games are going on during the doubleheader, who and where are you watching these games?
Well, we've got a big viewing room that has about 30 screens in it.
Okay.
And so we're watching our game. If there's another game going on, that's usually on those Thursday nights of the regular season, there might be one other game in addition to our doubleheader. So that game will be on, and then whatever else is on. There's a monitor that's got True TV on it, showing those crazy world's dumbest shoplifters.
Right.
anything that's on TV that night basically is on, and Charles a lot of times will have his headphones on, and he'll be watching The Mentalist. While he's watching, the biggest monitor has our game on it, so he's paying attention to the game, but he's also listening to the audio from The Mentalist. So
that's great.
With that, or Modern Family. So that's and Kenny and Shaq, we're all kind of like, we're all tuned in. Sometimes I'm in my office getting ready for halftime, and so I can center a lot better sometimes just sitting in a room by myself watching the game and listening to the play-by-play, so I can hear what if Marv and Steve are saying something, and I know I've got to have to do a cut-in the second quarter, I can refer to something that they said, and then invariably Marv will say something like, "Oh, proof once again that Ernie listens to what we're saying." And so but there's a lot of stuff going on. There's Kenny and Shaq and Chuck and all of us have things going on, and there were some various folks just wandering through at some point who were friends of the guys, and it's a fun night. I mean, we could probably market a show that's just the TNT viewing room or the green room. But really a lot of what's going on there is a lot of what you see on the air. It's just guys being themselves and being honest.
So the one word pretty much everyone uses to describe this show is chemistry. How has this come about? Why do you think the show has been so successful?
That's a great question, and every time I'm asked it, I just tell you there's no way to predict that. There never is. You can't just say, okay, let's put these 3 guys together or these 4 guys together. That'll work. Those guys will mesh perfectly. You don't know that until you kind of try it. And with me and Kenny and Chuck, it really just clicked from early on. I don't know why. I think one of the keys to chemistry for any show is you have to be able to step out of the way, and you have to be able to say, look, I don't care how much time I'm on. I don't care who gets to talk more. And I think you will start running into problems